Welcome to the next edition of Learning More about Northern Italian regional cultures and languages. Today, we're joined by Ruben from San Giorio di Susa in the province of Turin in Piemonte. Ruben, thanks so much for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself and a little bit about your hometown, please?
Yeah. So, hello everyone. I hope my English is understandable. I'll try to speak English in an understandable way. So, I'm Ruben. I'm from a small village in Susa Valley. Susa Valley is an alpine valley in the westernmost part of Piedmont, so northwest of Italy. I am surrounded here by a lot of mountains. My village is quite small, so we have less than 1,000 people. So it's kind of a rural place. We have a direct connection with Turin, which is the nearest town at 50 kilometers, but it's still a quite small village. So, my background, I'm 28. I was born here. Um, Both of my parents are from Piedmonte. My mother is from this area, so Susa Valley, while my father is from another part of Piedmont, which is called Canavese. I've studied in Turin, and then I moved to France. France is very very close from here. From this window, I see the mountains at the border with France. We always had a strong connection with France. That's why I also speak French as a native speaker. So yeah, this is basically my background. So, Susa Valley is a quite complicated and quite interesting area for the linguistics. Originally, Susa Valley was divided in two areas. We have the lower valley. It's the part of the valley where I'm from, so it's here. The lower valley is the easternmost part of the valley. It has always been, at least since 1,000 years, in the duchy, county, and then duchy of Savoy. So we were like one of the first parts of the duchy of Savoy, with some other places in Aosta and in Savoy. And then there's the upper valley. The upper valley is the westernmost part of the valley. They were part for several centuries of a region which is called Dauphiné, and it was part of the Kingdom of France. So we developed two main dialect, two main languages. In the lower part of the valley, we used to speak a dialect of the Franco-Provençal or Franco-Provençal. I won't say it's a language. It is a language, definitely, but it's more a family of different dialects because very few people wrote them. So there's not much of a written literature. And it's the same kind of dialects, same kind of languages that you find in the upper valley of the Turin province. So Lanzo, for example, Ceresole. It's also the same kind of dialect that you find in Aosta Valley, and of course on French side as well. So Savoy, Upper Savoy, some of the regions around. So for example, Lower Jura, the region of Lyon, the region of Grenoble also spoke Franco-Provençal, and also the biggest chunk of Roman Switzerland. So we are part of a bigger linguistic region, which comprises parts of northwest Italy, Switzerland, and eastern France. Now, the Upper Valley, on the other hand, they spoke a variety of the Provençal, which is itself a variety of the Occitan language. So the language from southern France, basically, that also spans a bit into Spain, and of course, all the lower Piemonte valleys. So lower ValSusa, Franco-Provençal, upper ValSusa, Provençal, which is part of Occitan language. Then this political separation also brought us new languages because, for example, the upper part was part of the Kingdom of France. So, apart their local language, they spoke French a lot, and they spoke very good French for a good reason, because on the upper valley, villages are quite high in altitude, and so they had long winters. So they developed a network of rural schools in all the area, in which all children had the obligation to go there. And we are speaking about the 14th, 15th century, so very very long time ago. So they learned, of course, French because they were in the Kingdom of France, and also because Provençal, well, the nearest upper language, literature language, was French, of course. So everyone was able to speak French apart from their local dialect. So with the centuries, also the local dialect became more and more French. So it's also one of the varieties of Occitan language that is more close to French, and it's more comprehensible to French. Here in the lower part, we actually lacked a little bit a higher language, because multiple language were used as a higher language. We had, of course, French as well, because Franco-Provençal is very close to French as well. It's even closer to French compared to Occitan. So here they also use French, but they also use Italian in a certain way, because from 1561, the official language of the Duchy of Savoy was not Latin anymore, and it was divided between French and Italian speaking parts. We have been put with the rest of Piedmont, so theoretically we had Italian as upper language. So some acts were written in Italian, but it was quite scarce, but it has been quite relevant for the aftermath. And then we also had Piedmontese, which is the language of Turin, as an upper language. So Piedmontese was also quite widespread and spoken. I'd say that for many centuries, Piedmontese, more than French and Italian, was the upper language here in the Low Valley. That's why our variety of Savoyan is quite influenced by Piedmontese, compared, for example, from the Franco-Provençal from Savoy, from French Savoy. That situation lasted until the end of 19th century, beginning of 20th century, so 100 years ago. Then two things happened. Well, first of all, Italy was created, but Italy was created in 1861, so it was in the middle of 19th century. For the first, I'd say, 40, 50 years, the linguistic situation did not really change. Because, for example, in the Upper Valley, they still had the right to teach French at school. So everyone spoke either Franco-Provençal in the Lower Valley or Occitan Provençal in the Upper Valley. Then, at the beginning of the 20th century, we had the railway line here. The railway was opened actually in 1870, so it was before the beginning of the 20th century. And with the railway, we had a direct connection to Turin, and we also had a lot of workers that came from Turin. And that's why, especially in the lower valley, and especially on the relatively big towns in the valley, people started to speak Piedmontese instead. So this transformation first concerned the kind of big towns. So Susa itself, which is the biggest town in the valley, and then also other places in the Central Valley. Smaller villages and hamlets, especially in the mountains, continued to use their local languages, so Franco-Provençal or Provençal. But then by the mid 20th century, the Piedmontization of the valley was quite complete. So even if the local languages were not lost, however, everyone spoke in Piedmontese, for example, between the people of different villages, or if you went to buy something at Susa in the market, you of course spoke Piedmontese and not your local language. So during the 20th century, we have had this first linguistic transformation from the local languages to the Piedmontese. Then something else happened. First of all, in the upper part of the valley, they still spoke French. They felt more French than actually Italian. So many, I say even most of the people left and went to France. So I say the biggest community in of the Upper Susa Valley people is in Provence right now. So entire villages were depopulated, and this was also actively encouraged by Italy because they saw those French-speaking guys in Italy as quite suspicious. The same thing happened in Aosta. So they were really encouraged to leave, and other Italians from other places arrived. And also, this concerned more the lower valley, which was more industrialized at the moment. We have had very big immigration from especially south of Italy, most of North Italy, but especially Piemonte and especially the Turin province. We have had a lot of immigrants from southern Italy who changed, I'd say, many of the characteristics of this society, either ethnically or linguistically or socially. But here we are just looking at the linguistic side. And there, it was really when the Italian arrived, because Italian has never been really widespread here. I'd say it has been for some centuries one of the administrative languages of the lower valley, but really no one spoke Italian before the great migrations and before the televisions and the newspapers happened. So during the 20th century, after the Piedmontization of the valley, we have had the Italianization of the valley.
Me, I just wanted to say it's quite an incredible history about Susa Valley. I think for most people outside of Italy, they've probably never heard of the valley. They don't know much about it. They just assume it's characteristically like all of northern Italy. But as you pointed out, it shares strong similarities with neighboring France. Its linguistic history is diverse, but it's also been going under various linguistic evolutions over the last 100 plus years, not just since the Italianization, which you did point out, due to industrialization. For those maybe who don't know much about it, Turin is part of a Triangolo Industriale, where many people, as you mentioned, from all over Italy and abroad, moved to various parts of not just Turin, but the region of Piemonte for industrial work. You know, companies like Fiat were based in Turin, many other companies too. So it has changed the area, according to you, a local, quite considerably. And you said there is a linguistic change that's almost been fully completed now. I mean, is Piemontese still well spoken in your area? How would you assess it?
So, what is the linguistic situation right now? Which is the linguistic picture right now? So, first languages, so Franco-Provençal and Occitan, and I'd say French. French has unfortunately nearly disappeared. There's no much people that can speak fluently French. I'm one of them. I'm bilingual French because of a lot of reasons. But French, apart from very small number of families, has nearly disappeared. Occitan from the Upper Valley, due to the depopulation and I'd say population shift that has in the Upper Valley, it's very, very rare to find someone who speaks Occitan or Provençal from Higher Valley. There were some people who wrote some books and made some interviews, but most of them are either already died or over 80. So on the lower valley, we had Franco-Provençal. So even if this language is really dying, I'd say in my village there are no more than 10 to 15 people who can still speak it. There's still some villages in which you can find some people speaking this language. For example, I'd say Novalesa or Mattie, or this is on the Occitan part, Chaumont, Piemonte. There you can still find some people who speak those ancient local languages. Now, on the Piedmontese is really related to where you come from. So I'd say that most of the local Piedmontese people, we are about maybe half of the population here, above 40 or 50 years. It depends on the area as well. They can speak Piedmontese. I'm a speaker of Piedmontese. I understand Franco-Provençal, but of course, there's no one to talk with, so I do not practice this language a lot. So yeah, so I still understand it, because if you speak Piedmontese and French, you definitely can understand Franco-Provençal. There's a lot of local terms that are used in toponymy, and I can very well understand them, but it's very difficult to practice this language unless you're in Aosta, because that's the only place that where this language is still alive. I am a speaker of Piedmontese, so all of Piedmontese is aged 40 or 50 plus can definitely speak Piedmontese. About below, it's quite complicated, and that's, I'd say, because the common language of the people of a certain area is the language that everyone can understand. So in my age group, people who are from here are not the majority. So you can't speak this local language. And so when you grow up, of course, the common language is Italian. So I'd say from 40 years, the main language for every person here is Italian. The first language is Italian. There are still some exceptions. There are some farmers that teach Piedmontese to their children, and I know some of them personally. There are also some, I don't know, people from small villages or hamlets that can also speak Piedmontese. It's mostly, except some exceptions, again, most of them can maybe just say some sentences. They can understand it. They say some sentences, but we can't have a conversation together. We that can speak a good Piedmontese, we are not very numerous here in Susa. Not as few as in Turin, but not very much. So compared to other valleys, other parts of Piedmont, maybe Cuneo or Monferrato, in which quite a lot of people can speak Piedmontese, here the number is quite low. But I can still speak Piedmontese with a lot of people. So if I go to the mountains and meet someone, I can definitely speak Piedmontese. I speak Piedmontese usually. Or if I meet someone with age 50 or more, I can definitely speak Piedmontese with him. So yeah, the language is still alive, but mostly on the older folks. So that's the linguistic picture. So sorry to have spoken a lot.
No, not at all. It's really insightful, not just for myself, but for anyone who to view this video. It's a really interesting historical insight into what's currently happening in your area. So to kind of summarize, Piemontese is definitely declining quite significantly, unfortunately, but it is still possible to find
Yes.
people of a young generation who speak it. They're mostly confined to either occupations like farming, where some farmers may speak to their own children in Piemontese, or people who are from very small towns and quite passionate about mountaineering sports. Would that be correct?
That's correct. Perfectly. Yeah.
And you said you spoke Piemontese perhaps with older friends or even your family. Can you introduce yourself in Piemontese, if that's possible, please?
Yes, of course. So just to say a picture, no one taught me Piedmontese. My grandparents, who are 90 and 92 years old, I won't say they are in trouble speaking Italian, but Piedmontese was definitely the language. So I had learned to speak Piedmontese with them. So just learning to them. And it's quite funny because here here in Susa, we mostly speak the Piedmontese Coine, so the standard Piedmontese, which was the language of Turin, but they were not from here, they were from Canavese. So there's some differences. So I speak Piedmontese with a Canavese accent, but being from Susa, which is a bit funny. So, buondì a tutti. Mi sono Ruben, mi chiamo Ruben, io vengo da San Giorio, San Giorio di Susa. San Giorio è un petit paese della ValSusa, e sono meno di 1000 persone. Et ils sont nascus en 1995, il a 20 ans. sempre vivuto in ValSusa, anche se lei studia a Turin, ma adesso vivo e lavoro in Francia. Bon, insomma, cammino a parlare con miei amici Kyle, sì, ma la lingua piemontese, che sfortunatamente e poi varie persone che sono buone a parlare la in ValSusa. Dentro i giù sarò una buona, quel disegno, ma non tante più. Per me è molto ben importante parlare piemontese perché fa parte della mia persona, fa parte della mia identità. Mi sono piemontese e avanti a parlare piemontese, avanti a guardare la lingua e non fa morire tutto l'on che insomma, non fa morire la nostra civiltà e le nostre tradizioni, la nostra lingua. Voilà.